Female founders are vivacious, they're smart, yet we are still challenged by our commitment to our profession.
Women don't need to be fixed. The environment in which we're in and the acceptable norms needs to change.
How do we change the narrative? Is there a narrative to be changed around the gender equity gaps?
I've heard some crazy things from founders. Did you get your husband's approval? Is it okay? Or even women in the workplace. It's an international trip, so of course you can't go because you have 3 kids.
Do you think the glass ceiling exists? What does it mean to be a female entrepreneur? And how do we create a sustainable platform for female leaders to raise capital, compete in an equitable environment, and create a more inclusive culture? I'm excited to be sitting down and having this discussion with my dear friend Joanne Fedeyko, who is an incredible advocate when it comes to female entrepreneurs. She is the founder and CEO at Connection Silicon Valley, the founder of the Canadian Women's Network, co-founder and general partner of Women's Equity Lab, Silicon Valley, an advisor to startups, and she is an incredible leader. So Joanne, thank you so much for joining me. We have been friends for a very long time. I'm in complete admiration with what you do. You have made an incredible and continue to make an incredible impact for females, women, founders, entrepreneurs, women in the workplace, outside the workplace. Tell us a little bit about your story and what drives your passion to support female founders.
First, thank you. Means a lot coming from you. You are a dear friend that you've become through the work that we both do and the work that we do supporting women. I just have like this natural inclination to help people. And I've always had it and always wanted to. I think it's a bit of growing up on a farm where, you sort of are pretty scrappy and there's a sense of community around. And I saw my parents being really helpful and the community being helpful. And so just like growing up, I've kind of always had that sense of being helpful to people. But I got into it by, having a privilege of running an organization several years ago in Silicon Valley that was formed by expat Canadians living in the Bay Area looking to support Canadian entrepreneurs that were growing their organizations but didn't have access to capital and connections in a place like Silicon Valley. And that's what opened up my eyes to being able to merge a couple of passions in my life because I saw the great tech that was happening in Canada. You become pretty patriotic when you leave your country. And I had this opportunity, therefore, to kind of connect a couple of the things. So after running that for a couple of years, I had just visions of doing a lot more. And so I started my own company and started to do more of that kind of connections, but did it in like corporate innovation. We started an organization to support life science startups in Canada. We started an initiative to support Canadian female entrepreneurs. We did some work with women on boards and getting more focus and attention there. And then recently, we've actually launched an angel network with 25 global female entrepreneurs to get more women on the cap table. So we do all of that really with a large focus on helping to make connections and make meaningful connections for people to help them kind of scale their businesses.
So we're going to have a lot of juicy conversations around the equity gap around female men. We're going to talk a little bit about, what we need to do as a community to come together. And it's so interesting because there is a huge equity gap. We hear it all the time that female founders can't raise the same amount, if not more, than male founders. And that goes beyond, just diversity and a variety of different elements. So based on the work that you do, what do you think are the biggest barriers to female founders raising capital? Like, why can't we reach that threshold or extend beyond potentially what male founders can raise?
So first, the stat, right? Less than 2% of capital goes towards female entrepreneurs. And a very small fraction of that goes to women of color or entrepreneurs of color in both genders in it. So there is an obvious and apparent gap that exists out there in the market. And it's been obvious for a long time, and the focus has been on it now for a while. And the last number of years, I think that's really heightened with everything that's happened. It has heightened. But still, we're not seeing change in it. Now, change doesn't happen overnight because it's taken us a long time to get to where we are. So I think part of it is like understanding our expectations right now and knowing that things aren't going to just overnight dramatically change. But what's happened is that, there is a lot of unconscious bias out there. So that's being addressed. People are, VCs and others are understanding that exists. They don't mean to do it, but they do it. So opening up their aperture and making sure that they're seeing a lot more female founders and underrepresented founders in there. So that's all good with it. There's funds that have been created now specifically to support women and underrepresented founders. The problem with some of those is they're really small. They're a couple million, maybe $50 million of a fund size. They're not hundreds of millions, $500 million, billions of dollars. And so there's still this gap that exists of how much capital is maybe necessarily really available and accessible to female entrepreneurs. Because if they're going after this new pool of capital, there's just not a lot of it that's there yet. So that needs to be created. And so there's external factors. And then I think there's internal factors, right? We're women, big general statement, but our confidence meter is very different than men. We have feelings and we connect in with those feelings.
Which is a good thing.
It's a very good thing.
It's a good thing.
Yeah, but we have a little bit more self-doubt. Men just go for it and we question or we need to be pretty right on things. Right. So what we hear and talk about a lot with female entrepreneurs is just trying to find that balance within themselves as to I don't want to be not authentic and not myself out there. I don't want to be a male just so that I can go get that capital or be like that. I still need to be true to myself. But yet maybe I need to also look at what else I can do out there to showcase what it is that my company is doing, my product, how strong I am as a founder and as the company is in the product that we're building. And that's where I think there's the internal opportunity for us to be looking at how we show up, what more we can do to project that confidence and to be able to show that, we are the best opportunity for that fund or whoever it is, that customer, for them to bet on based on that. So sometimes we don't want to take that time. Sometimes it's really uncomfortable for us. And I'm not saying that everybody has to go change, but we should be evolving and it's opportunities for us to continue to grow as women, as founders, as leaders. And so I think it's just accepting what's externally happening out there, but trying to position ourselves the best that we can to be able to be in front of it and go grab that capital that's available.
Right. So what's your advice to female founders who are in the process of raising capital? What are things they should consider? How do they prepare? What are some of the key elements that you see from companies? Why do they get funded? Why do they not get funded? Because I think there's potentially some misconceptions, right? People say a lot of different things. I mean, you sit on both sides of the table, so you have a really good perspective. What would you tell those female founders in the process of raising capital? What should they consider?
It goes blanket to all founders, but again, where we have some of, maybe we're lower on some of those strength scales, is you really got to know your business, know your industry, and to be able to position yourself and your company. So being a founder, you're doing 100 jobs at the same time. And one of them is often raising capital, which is a predominant job. But there's also building product, raising a team, being a leader. So it's just overwhelming and a lot to do. So the best that founders can do, I think, is really understand who their competitors are that are out there, know them cold. Where do they differentiate themselves in that? We need to practice and be prepared. This isn't just about showing up and being okay, I've practiced a pitch in front of a mirror. No, you've got to really go look at the best of the best that's out there. Keep reiterating, get advice and feedback from every source that you can out there in the beginning, and really find those gaps within how you're presenting, the business model, the market, whatever it is that people are coming and questioning about when you present. So that it's just almost like a no-brainer. You're just coming across so strong and confident. You know your business, you know your numbers in your business, you know your competitors, and you're well positioned in front of, that investor. Because in the early days, it's all about the founder and the founding team. So if you're not coming across with that full confidence in yourself and your team and your product in the market that you know, then why is anybody else going to? So, but I think that that doesn't come naturally to everybody, not a lot of us. And that because there's so many elements, it's really about a lot of hustle, a lot of work, probably a lot of late nights and weekends. If you have a gap in an area, go learn that gap. Go figure out what the metrics are, what the numbers need to be, understand financials if you're not comfortable with financials, get to know your competitors if you're not a technical founder, learn enough on the technical side of it. So you really got to become an expert in a lot of things, which maybe isn't fair, but you're running a business and you want to take it global. So got to learn sometime.
Right. There's some interesting, I think female founders are vivacious, they're smart. We do second guess ourselves. I think it's natural in comparison to men. We work tirelessly, strong work ethic. Yeah. Yet we're still interrogated by the commitment to our business, the commitment to our craft, the commitment we have to the things, our passions, right? We are sisters, we are mothers, we are caregivers, we are all of the things. And yet we are still challenged by our commitment and the loyalty to our companies or to our profession.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, I think if that happens, like founders should really just get up and walk out of the room, to be honest. Like we don't need to kind of accept that anymore. And I've heard some crazy things from founders. Did you get your husband's approval? Is it okay? Or even women in the workplace that are, well, it's an international trip, so of course you can't go because you have 3 kids. But the man can go, but he has 3 kids too in it. So, it's just an unfortunate situation that's happened over the decades in it. But I think that there is, I'm an optimist. I'm a glass overflowing girl. So I think that I see that changing. And if anybody is so bold as to ask those ridiculous questions anymore, then founders should just say, thank you so much. And they should walk out the room. Because it's not about the investor holding all of the cards and the power. What founders really have to understand is that they hold the power.
I love that.
And it is a relationship. And it's like, I hear this wonderful phrase all the time, like, think about who's on your cap table if you want them at your dinner table. This is truly a two-way relationship. And as founders, we have the power. And it's do I want this person, do I want to give them the opportunity that I have? Because that's a gift. I'm going to give them the opportunity to make money off of me. But then it's a relationship, as we know, for a long time. So are they the person that they have the right values? Are they aligned with who we are? What we're trying to build in our company? And would I want to have dinner with them? Truly sit down and enjoy a dinner with them. So I think that regardless of what happens, you and I have talked about this, sometimes it's about not focusing on what's happening, but focusing on how we can change it and just flipping the switch. So sometimes that might be walking out of the room. Other times it might be questioning it a little bit more, just giving a strong answer back, and saying like, next,
right?
What else do you got for me?
Right.
Yeah.
No, I love that. And it's so interesting because I think, we've talked a lot about the challenges, just generally speaking, across all genders. But I think specifically, we've seen a lot of those challenges focused on females and just the support of women to women.
Right.
And that's been a juicy topic, if you will, only because I think there's been some instances where there is strong support women to women. And then you've seen the complete opposite where women may not be as supportive to other women or probably tougher on, their mentees or people they work with. Because if you look at the C-suite, there's not many women at the C-suite level. And so if there's one spot open, that woman is going to, regardless, man, female, are going to, put their hand up and go for it.
Right.
So, and I've had instances personally where I've had great female influencers, and then I've had really tough female influencers in my life,
Yeah.
both in and outside of the workplace. What is your perspective on that? What do we do to better support each other?
There's a famous quote that says, there's a special place in hell for women that don't support women. And I hope it's true, because I too have had just some horrific, instances where, the women didn't have my back, and, worse than that, right? Mm-hmm. Not just didn't have my back and didn't support me, but the opposite of that. Mm-hmm. And I guess there's just something where because we're women, we have that feeling and that inside of us where we mostly feel like we're supportive, and we expect other people to be that with us. So it's really incredibly disappointing when that doesn't happen to us. I think the best that we can do is just lead by example out there. And because the world is so much more open than in those, decades ago, and even maybe a decade ago, where there's the one, position, that will open it up for those women that maybe are a bit more competitive and feel like you've got to lose in order for me to win, because it's not the zero-sum game. People that buy into the philosophy that if I help you, regardless if I get anything back from it, the world's a better place, and that it will come back to me in spades
somehow.
Yeah. But change is hard, like you said. So I'm not sure that we can really stand up and tell people how to do that, but we can certainly model the behavior that's out there. And we can ask people for their support that's out there, instead of just waiting for it to come to us and going out and, would you mentor, would you sponsor me, would you provide some, input? Because I think overall, generally speaking, right, women want to support women, and there's more of that now with it. But we're still going to have some bad actors, unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be, naysayers and people who might not support your journey. But I think, to your point, there is quite a bit of females and men to support as well. Yeah. And I'm a firm believer that we need both genders. We need all genders actually at the table supporting each other.
Yeah.
And I think you're starting to see a lot of, males come to the table, champion women, and vice versa across genders.
Yeah.
What do you think, maybe I'll take a step back. Do you think the glass ceiling exists?
Yes, 100%. Because we've seen it.
Yeah.
It's very publicly been shown to us. I don't think I was ever myself on that trajectory. Maybe there was, but I personally never felt like I couldn't go somewhere in my career because of that glass ceiling. But there's countless of examples that are out there. Now, has there been sort of a force around us and around me? I think, yeah. And some of that, again, talk about some of the women that didn't support me in my journey along the way. There's been some stuff for sure that's really not allowed us to advance. And again, external forces, but really hurting us internally too, without having that in there. There shouldn't be any room today in North America for a glass ceiling. Nobody should accept that. And if they see it, then there should be means around it, for sure. But again, we're just not all created equal. Not every organization is that advanced in their thinking, maybe not that mature, maybe not that ready for things to exist in that way. But, millennials and Gen Zs are doing a great job of making sure that they're pushing up and that nothing's going to stop them. So if there is one that still exists out there, I'm pretty confident they're going to just blow right past it. But I want to just quickly touch on the male allyship that's kind of needed out there, because there are so many, the men's network is real. It is a text message, it's a phone call, it's talking on the golf course, the proverbial golf course, whatever that is. And we need access to those networks, and we're not going to get them by just being in our own networks of women.
Yeah, I agree.
So they're incredibly important. And there's a lot that really want to truly help women advance. But there are few that know how to do it or can take this or are taking the steps to do it. And that's where I think we also need to ask people to specifically kind of do this sometimes for us, to not be afraid of that, because they want to be helpful, but they just don't know what that is and how they do it. And women, I heard this last year. We had a panel session, and we had all women around the table, all VCs, just talking about this kind of a topic. And like one woman said, I'm fucking tired. I'm tired of supporting and mentoring women. I'm still going to do it, but I need men to step up and do it too. They need to be the ones mentoring, because everybody looks to women to support women. And we're doing it, but we need more mentorship and, again, sponsorship that's out there. So that's where I think we need to ask more and really invite them to the table, sit them down, show them exactly, what the path is, and ask them in order to like support us, so we get access to those amazing networks that exist.
So some women might be too shy to ask, right? Like, and how do you ask where it's not self-serving? Because in a way it is, right? Like, let's call a spade, right?
Why can't it be self-serving? Like, that's what it is, right? If we're going to advance, like, the men are self-serving for them.
Absolutely. So, but some who may not have the confidence, for instance, might feel as though it's you're just asking without giving something in return, right? Yeah. And I think sometimes as females, I feel like this sometimes. If I'm asking for something, I need to also provide something in return, so it's a mutual exchange, right? It's mutually beneficial for both parties. Yeah. So how do you? And I'm getting better at it, where I'm just like, hey, I need your help, and this is what I need. Yeah. But for those who might not be as confident, who aren't sure how to ask, and then on the flip side, some men just don't know how to help. Yeah. Where is that convergence between the two? So there's like a nice medium.
So we're stepping out of our comfort zone with that. And again, we're looking for this sureness. Oh, I can only ask you for something because I'm going to give you something back in return. Right. Maybe that's not the case. Right. It doesn't have to be the case. Because if we believe in the law of attraction, the universe providing for us, then it will come back to you. You're an incredibly authentic person. If you go to somebody and ask them for something, I'm pretty sure they're not going to be like, oh, Bedea's really looking for something very self-serving here. Right. And, I don't want anything to do with it. So I think it's just like who we are mostly naturally as women. We're more about community. We're more about giving. We're more about kind of those networks. And so I think we just have to more so get comfortable with being a little bit uncomfortable instead of trying to find other ways around it or not asking for it. So kind of the just do it model. Right. I mean, talk to people, practice, if you will, find some ways that are authentic for you. But still, I challenge, we have to step out of our proverbial comfort zone, or we're not going to make the change. Like we can't expect anybody to do it for us. So this is where, if these are the things we need to do, at what point is it uncomfortable? Is that okay? Am I at all verging on an ethical sort of behavior? Is it not authentic for me? Okay, well, maybe if you're going into an area that you're like, no, that's not me at all. I'm not going to show up as my like true self. I can't do that. Okay, great. Don't go in that direction. Right. What else then? But still step outside of that comfort zone so that you can grow. Right. And kind of be out there and think about it. If you're not doing it for you, you're doing it for the betterment of women out there, with showing the way and opening that up. Because when that happens, right, the world opens up more for us. And, maybe you don't know it. Right. But the universe sees it. It does. And it creates that sort of, sea change. That energy. Yeah, an energy.
Yeah, I love that. As you were talking, I started to think about, my own experience and thinking through the confidence piece. So it's really interesting, because if we look at just, female behavior, right? If we come across too confident, or if we are too straightforward, we are seen as aggressive or bitchy. And if we are too soft, or our tone changes, then we are seen as, not confident, don't know your stuff, just a pushover. Yeah. And so as I started to think about what you were saying and how we show up and what does that look like and being our authentic self, it's interesting because, there's this term of perception's reality. So how you show up is how people perceive you. Yet confidence and cockiness or aggressiveness can be also viewed very differently, and sometimes actually very negatively towards female, where if a male, for instance, is straightforward and provides feedback or is confident, no one bats an eyelash.
Right. Celebrate it.
Celebrate it. Yeah. High fives, chest pumps. Let's go. Like, it's very much a bro like culture where we have to be super mindful of our tone, what we wear, how we show up, what our demeanor is, all of that. Like, what are your thoughts?
I just attended a talk on this recently, where there's lots of data research that's done on, male versus women environments and networks. And what the problem is that it's not us as women, it is these environments and what is sort of acceptable behavior, tones from the top, right? So women don't need to be fixed. We don't need to change. The environment in which we're in and the acceptable norms needs to change with it.
I love that.
And so, yes, it happens so much, and it's so horrible because I feel like I can't be me because I'm a straightforward person.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not trying to come off as a bitch. I'm just trying to be clear. So we have to look at how we change these environments. And this is the big change that is happening out there, the conversations that are happening, the data that's being provided, the microscope that's being put, the standards and the sort of policies that are being put in place in order to start to look and understand what is the problem and how can we start to address it. And the good news is, again, we don't need to change.
Right.
The environments that have been created and those social norms within them, that is what needs to change out there.
I love that. So I think that leads to our next point around just the narrative. How do we change the narrative? Is there a narrative to be changed around equity, like the gender equity gaps?
It still needs to be front and center because we need to focus on it so that there is change. You know me, I don't like to talk about stuff for the sake of just having a conversation and bitching about it ourselves, but instead figuring out what some actionable items are. So I think that's how we make the change happen, is we still need to talk about it. We still need to research it, track the data, report on it, but then let's move to solutions versus just oh, woe is us. We get 2% of the capital that's out there.
Right.
I'm not taken seriously enough. I'm not showing up confidently. No, we all have to do our part in that. But again, it still needs to be front and center. And I do think more people are really done with the conversation and saying yes, we know that there's a problem that exists. Let's talk about best practices. Let's look at organizations and people and way things are done that is moving the needle in these areas. Let's talk about what we can do and celebrate some of those things and give people the tools and the toolkit to allow them, to your point, if you're maybe not that confident, how do you get there? These are tools that we need to learn and develop in order to help move the needle out there.
So we've talked a lot about challenges. If the challenges did not exist, and if we as humans, citizens came together, the community as a whole came together, what can we do together? What can we do together to accomplish something great? What is our call to action?
Yeah. So that is happening. Out there, because we're never going to be in a place where there isn't any problems, because as soon as we fix the one problem, there's a bigger problem anyway. So let's not get so quick in getting past one problem, because there's probably a bigger one for us. So let's accept where we're at with it and figure out how we can make some of those changes. There's big macro movements and changes in policy that's being written and, trainings being developed and all the things happening that's out there. I don't live in that world. I'm not at that macro level. I'm at a micro level. So for me, it's about what are some of the specific things that we can be doing. It's getting together with our sisterhood, right? It is asking for what we need more. It's feeling a little bit uncomfortable. It's understanding where we're not as strong and where our gaps are, and being able to go educate ourselves, find resources, find a community that supports us in that. And I do all these little micro steps all the time. And I truly believe that at the end of the day, they are helping to like make the bigger shift. It's just maybe a little bit unseen. So don't be afraid of the small steps that we're doing. I think consistently do some things that are out there. We naturally are givers, but we have to get more comfortable at asking for what we need, and kind of fill those gaps within us, and celebrate the heck out of what is working, what is happening, like how, and they can be small things. They don't have to be the big, massive things. We can be celebrating all of our small steps along the way. So there's so many groups, initiatives, forums, communities, networks for us as women, for us as female founders, for those that are more underrepresented or often excluded. And I think coming together within those, but then cross-pollinating and making sure that we're not just staying within our own group out there. We're learning from others and we're teaching others at the same time.
I love that. I am just always in awe with what you do, and I love what you do. And we've been friends for quite some time, and there's always something that I learn from you. So you're just a giver fully, and I just wanted to thank you for being who you are and for the impact and the value that you continue to make, and for being here and chatting with me. I'm so excited. So thank you, Joanne.
Thank you, Fedeyko, for doing this, because you're making change in the world too.
I hope so.
You are.
Thank you.
Yeah.